right now. Looks like it's live. Good afternoon, guys. I hope you guys are having a good day. I'm over here with Ryan again. We do some Azure training again with Windows 11, I believe. And I'm going to leave the floor to Ryan and have him go over it.
Cool. Hi, guys. Thank you again for taking the time to tune in and be part of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to deploy Windows 11 from the ground up into Azure. But not only can you apply these principles to Windows 11, you can apply them to any custom image. You may have your own image, your Windows 10 image at home, or even your Windows XP image, or your Windows 7 image, or even Linux, Ubuntu. It could be a server, it could be a Windows server. So what we want to do is create our own custom image and deploy our own custom image into Azure. Now, there's many ways to do that. You can create ARM templates. You can buy a custom image from the marketplace. But the whole thing at the end of the day is, in order to create a custom image, it needs to be in a VHD format. So what you guys need to, if you're running Windows 10, we need to get Hyper-V installed. So I'm just going to quickly show you where Hyper-V is, because again, you don't have to pay for it. You'll be surprised how many people have said to me, hey, Ryan, how do I get Hyper-V? It comes with Windows 10 Pro. All you have to do is go to Programs and Features on your machine. You say, turn Windows features on or off, and I'll just drag this over. And then you go and turn on Hyper-V. Hyper-V is over here. You go and turn that on. You click OK, and your machine will install Hyper-V, and then it'll give you a reboot. And then Hyper-V will be installed on your machine. So once you've got Hyper-V installed, the next thing you need to do is create your image. So whether you using Linux or Windows, we need to create an image. So I'm going to go ahead, and of course you can click on your virtual machine, and we can go ahead and go new, and we can say virtual machine. And then obviously we do the same thing. It's still pretty straightforward. We can give this a name. I could call this, say, Windows 11 -02. Sorry, take that out. Can't spell this morning. 02. And then of course I'm going to just browse. I've got the Hyper-V installed on my another drive because I've run out of drive space. I'll go to Hyper-V, and obviously I can say Windows Dev 2. You can see I've got a folder here. So I'm just going to come into this folder again. I'll create another folder, and I'll just call it Win Dev 3. You can call it whatever you want, and we click OK. Then I'd go ahead and go next. Again, you can use generation 1 or generation 2. It's up to you at the end of the day. I'm going to just select generation 1 because it's just a lab. We go next. And of course, I'm going to turn off dynamic memory, and I'm going to give this virtual machine, say, 7 gigs of RAM. You can give it whatever you want. It can be 4 gigs, 5 gigs, whatever you can. Then I'll go next. I'm going to use the default Microsoft Virtual Switch in Hyper-V. I'm going to go next. And then obviously I'm going to go now and create my drive. So I might say I want to make this drive, say, 15 gig for argument's sake. You can make it whatever you want. Obviously don't make it 1 terabyte because it's going to take a long time, or 500 gigs. It's going to take a while to upload, and I'll explain why. So I'm going to go ahead and go next. Obviously I'm going to choose my ISO image. I'm going to browse down. I'm going to go to my Windows 11 ISO. I'm going to click next, and I'm going to click finish. Now, before I fire that virtual machine up, I want to go into settings, and I want to scroll down to checkpoints, and I want to disable this. I'm doing this because it's a lab, because what happens is every 15 minutes or every 20 minutes, it starts taking snapshots, and those snapshots appear over here. If I say checkpoint, this will create a snapshot for us. And the reason we don't want to do that is because I don't want to take up drive space, and I want to get this lab done as quick as possible. So what I'll do is I double click on my Hyper-V machine. Just give me a second. Can you see that? It's opened up here. Can you see the Hyper-V? Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click start. And this is going to start up that virtual machine for us. Thinking about it should be pretty quick. There we go. And we'll go ahead and install Windows 11 from the ground up. And like I say, this is Windows 11 dev version. I'm sure when Microsoft release it, it will become, things will change a little bit. And of course, you can select your different languages and different keyboard layouts. So I'm just going to accept the default for now so we can get this lab done. Click install now. And if you notice,
I wanted to ask you a question, Ryan. Sorry.
Yep.
Quick question for you. Can you create local accounts on a home Windows 11 or no? I heard rumors that you cannot do that. Is it true or not?
Yes, you can. I'll show you. I'll show you how to do that. Yes, you can. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say I don't have a product key, and that's fine. We're not worried. As you can see, there's all the different versions. So workstation version is if you're using SolidWorks or something with really intense graphics, then you can use workstation version. And of course, you've got the education versions and Pro. So let's go with Pro. And I'm going to go next. And I'm going to accept the agreement. I'm going to go next. I'm going to choose my 15 gig. And I'm just going to go install. And this is going to go away and install Windows 11. And like Kevin just said, when Microsoft have made it so that when you install Windows 11, by default, it's going to ask for an online account. But you can create an offline or a local account like Kevin just said. So I'll show you how to do that. And the reason we're doing this from the ground up is because by default, Hyper-V is going to create this virtual machine using a VHDX drive. And we now need to convert that VHDX drive to VHD. But also, once we've created our image, now you don't need to do this with Linux, but with any Windows image, we want to sysprep our image. Once we've got our image the way we want, we'll do a sysprep, and then we'll log on to Azure, and we'll then upload this image to Azure, and then we will go ahead and create our custom image from this VHD drive. In a sense, we're going to create a template, and then we can delete the template so we don't need it anymore, and we can then have our proper virtual machine running. And then if we want to, from that virtual machine, we can then create a template from that so that we're not doing two things at the same time or doubling up as we go along. And again, like I say, depending on your machine, depending on your resources, like I say, it'll take 5 minutes or 10 minutes for this to load up. I don't want to speed up the videos or anything on this. I want you guys to know how to do this from the ground up, because these same principles, like I said earlier on, apply to any Windows image you want to do and any Linux image you want to do. Just bear in mind with Windows 10 and Windows Server 2012, 2016, 2019, when we sysprep it, we need to run some PowerShell commands to turn on stuff and to help generalize the image. And then we can just throw it up into Azure. But what I've done with Windows 11, what I found out was really cool. I just sysprepped the image and threw it straight up, and it just fired up instantly. I was really impressed. I didn't need to run any PowerShell commands in the back. So that's awesome. So that's a really good way of getting it up and running. And as you know, let's just have a quick chat about Windows 11. As you know, Microsoft have been notorious for releasing operating systems that suck. Let me give you a good example. Those who remember Windows Millennium or Windows ME, that was just terrible. Then they released Windows Vista. That was terrible. Then they released Windows 8. That was terrible. And then they released Windows 8.1, and that was terrible as well. So while your machine is rebooting, you can go up to Media, go to DVD drive, and you can eject that disk, because we don't need that disk anymore because we've copied all the files to the hard drive already. So we don't want it booting to your DVD anymore. Again, this is not a Hyper-V course. This is just showing you quickly how to create a virtual machine in Hyper-V and how to get this machine ready for deployment into Azure. And like I said, going back to the previous conversation, like I said, with Microsoft releasing operating systems and having a lot of drama around them, I have to give Microsoft credit. They've done a good job this time around. They've listened to the users, they've listened to the consumers, they've listened to developers, the engineers, and other people out there, users like you and me. And they have really streamlined Windows to be an amazing operating system. And the cool thing is, it works with Android and devices too. So whether it be your mobile phone or whether it be your tablet, it's great. Again, I will down the line create a really nice course just purely on Windows 11 because it's here and people want to use it. The nice thing is if you're using Windows 10 currently, you will get Windows 11 for free. I don't know how long Microsoft will have that campaign running, but I would assume it would be for a while. So that's really good. Of course, the OEM versions would be supplied to the manufacturers like Acer, HP, IBM, Lenovo. Well, Lenovo own IBM, the same thing. So at the end of the day, those OEM versions of Windows will be available. Now, in getting Windows 11 installed, sometimes it's a little bit slow. And the reason it's a little bit slow, guys, is because I'm using the developer version. And like I'm saying, I want you to see how this is done step by step so that you can go away and deploy your own Windows 11 system to Azure or deploy your own Windows 10 custom image. Or hey, you may not even be a Windows fan, you may be a Linux fan, and you can deploy any version of Linux into Azure. Yes, any version. So this is how you would do it. And when I'm talking about, you may have your own customized Linux desktop and it's got all your Linux apps and it's got all your bits and pieces on. So you can actually capture that image and deploy it without having to manually go into the Azure portal and starting from scratch and building your virtual machine and say, okay, now we've got our Linux machine or Windows machine. Let's go ahead and start putting our apps on there. This is also a good way to test if your apps are going to run in Azure. And that's one of the keys, guys. Before you deploy anything, it's always good to create a custom image, deploy it to Azure, and see if those apps are going to run in Azure. They may not run in Azure. There may be something that Azure doesn't like about them. Then you're going to have to say, okay, well, that's not running nicely in Azure. We need to come up with another plan. So creating custom images have a lot of advantages and, of course, a lot of disadvantages. So as you can see, our Windows 10 machine is firing up. Again, once this is fired up, we'll walk through the wizard and just do our basic install. And then we will convert this disk to a VHD disk. And Hyper-V have the tools to do that. So you don't need to download any tools. So we're going to go ahead and click next for the United States. I mean, you can choose your language from whatever country you're from. That's not a problem at all. And this is, as we go through this part of the install, this is where we set up our local account or our online account. It's up to you what type of account you want to create. Just bear in mind as well, in order to use the full functionality of Windows 7, you need to activate it as well. And of course, once it's activated, you can change your toolbars, you can add your icons to the desktop, and you can kind of make it look very similar to Windows 10 so that you can at least learn to get to grips with driving the operating system. And like I said earlier on, this is a little bit slow on my machine because I have a lot of other stuff running on it, but B, it's also the developer version.
I was going to ask you a question again, Ryan.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yes.
Do you need to have supposedly you need to have TPM in order to use Windows 11? Is that true or not true?
No. I mean, the TPM or the Trusted Platform Module is at the end of the day, most PCs come built with that Trusted Platform Module in there. I mean, we're running a virtual machine here and there's no TPM on this virtual machine. I've thrown Windows 11 on some older hardware and it works absolutely fine. Mm-hmm. The only issue that you face if your hardware is too old, you might have an issue with the graphics or finding a network drive, but it's like Windows 10. You can find all the bits. Don't worry about this. I'm just going to skip that because that's just me messing around with my keyboard. Obviously, when you do it, you won't see that there. But having the trusted platform module on there does have a whole lot of security enhancements. You may have all heard of BitLocker. BitLocker uses the TPM module. So again, like I say, my advice is throw it on a machine. As long as you've got a decent hard drive and as long as you've got 8 gigs of RAM. Now you can choose which one you.
There we go.
And now we go here. I'm going to set this up for personal use. But now this is where the kicker comes into. By default, it's asking you to do that. Just go to the sign-in options. Offline account. And let's create an offline account because I don't want to sign in and
that makes sense.
An online account, but you can do this. So we're going to create an offline account so that we can get up and running. And of course, it's going to populate. I'm just going to use the limited experience. Don't worry. Once you activate Windows 10, you can't. So I'll just call this user. I'll just call it, say, admin, because obviously, and then you can put a password if you wanted to. I'm just going to ignore that for now. And now this is going to go away and install that virtual machine. And then I can actually log on to Windows. What we'll do is once we've logged on to Windows, obviously you get all this nonsense before. And if I go next, it just drags this toolbar all the way down. And of course you can accept that, or you can turn those features off. If you want, the nice thing about Windows 11, Microsoft have got rid of a lot of bloatware. They've got rid of a lot of the clutter so that you can focus on what you use a lot. If you use Office, you can have Office in your menu like Word, Excel, and stuff. If you use certain other tools, they can appear there as well. So it depends on you. As you start using the system, you can modify and change the start menus to suit your environment. But again, by default, like I say, I think the reason they've made it look and feel a bit more Macified, if that's the word I can use, is because a lot of people use in schools here in New Zealand, and I'm sure across the world, a lot of them use Google Chrome or Chrome notebooks for their work. And so Microsoft are trying to make their interface user-friendly for the newer generation, not so much for us older guys or us guys that have been in IT since Windows 10 has been around. They're trying to make it more user-friendly for the newer generation. But again, like I say, there are some cosmetic changes, and I think Microsoft have done a really bang-up job by getting it right the first time. But again, it's one of these things that you'll either like or you won't like, but you'll definitely get used to it, and you can move stuff around. And once you get used to it, it's like, oh, okay, it's not too bad. It's not so different as what I thought it was. I mean, yes, when you log on, you'll see the icons will be slightly different. They're more jazzed up. And I can see where Microsoft are coming from, because at the end of the day, PC hardware specs have increased, giving developers, designers, more potential to create different types of graphics, different types of solid state drives, different types of memory. And so Microsoft are just keeping up to keeping trend, should I say, with the latest tech, which is great. And this is what we want to do. We want to get onto a machine and we want to work and get our stuff done. And I mean, like any new operating system, if you are used to driving Windows 10, I'll give you a few days and you'll be able to drive Windows 11 with no problem. It's just a case of getting a bit used to it. But definitely, like I say, I'm not saying Microsoft is the best company in the world. I'm saying they've got it right with this operating system. They finally have come to the party. Some of you may disagree with me. Some of you may not, but I'm talking from experience, like I say, going way back to when Windows Millennium was first released. Again, the reason I'm getting this pop-up, you won't get this, is because I've got dual monitors. So I'm just going to click, I can close that down if I wanted to, or I could click OK. Now, you can see the start menus here in the middle. You can actually go to the taskbar settings and move this right to the left over here. Once Windows is activated, you can select this little drop-down menu here and say, turn it to the left. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do with Windows 11. So now we've got Windows 11 up and running. So whether this is Windows 11 or Windows 10, it's, it doesn't really matter, or a Linux version. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up File Explorer. And as you can see, it looks a little bit different with the icons. They made it user-friendly. But again, if I go right mouse click and I go to Properties, you will notice we start having a Windows 11 look and feel. One of the things you do want to do is you want to go to Advanced System Settings and you want to turn on Remote Desktop. So the reason you'd want to turn that on is because you want to connect to your virtual machine. So again, go ahead and turn Remote Desktop on. That's all you need to do. Click Apply and click OK. If you wanted to change your machine name, you could do that as well. I'm just going to leave it at the default because I don't want to waste time today. And I'll click OK. And as you can see, it's very similar to Windows 10.
Looks like Windows 10 almost.
Yes.
Almost the same.
There's a lot of architecture in the background that's there. So again, if I did a search and I typed in control panel and I brought up my control panel, just give a sec, it's opened up in the background. You can see control panels.
Looks almost the same.
Almost the same. If I go to large icons, there you go.
Oh my God, similar.
There's your control panel. You can go ahead and change your plans like you were used to. I'm just making some changes. So you can see driving a Windows 10 will be, driving Windows 11 will be user-friendly for you at the end of the day. So it's nothing to be alarmed about. And like I say, in the background, there are some really good enhancements. So now we've got our machine. Let's say we've gone ahead, we've installed all of our apps and say, okay, right, our machines, that's what we want. What we want to do is you want to scroll up to the folder here. And I obviously want to go to Program Files, not Program Files, Windows, my fault, guys. And then we want to scroll down and we want to look for our System32. And then I'm just going to type in SYS for sysprep. I'm going to double click on that. And I'm going to just run as administrator. And we want to now sysprep our machine. We want to generalize it. Make sure you use the out-of-box experience, not the audit mode. And make sure you say, let's shut that machine down. So I'm going to go ahead and say, right, I'm going to sysprep that bad boy, shut him down, and it's going to sysprep. So once that machine has sysprepped, we can now go and convert it to a VHD format. And then we can upload that machine into Azure. And then we can go ahead and deploy it in Azure and create that virtual machine step by step so that you guys can see how this is done. Yes, even though we're doing it with the Windows 11, it doesn't matter whether it's Windows 10 or Linux, you still need to have a converted to VHD. If you're using a free virtualization software like Oracle Box, you're in luck because Oracle Box by default creates your virtual machines as VHD. So then you would just go in and you would upload your virtual machine straight into Azure and you'd be good to go. So we'll just give this a sec while this.
And what is sysprep in a non-technical way? Because people might not know what that is.
Okay, what sysprep is doing, it's kind of resetting everything like a brand new deployment. So, when you install a brand new machine, you go through the start menu, the install menu, next, and you choose where you want it to go. So that's what sysprep does. It generalizes it and it reinstalls it. You may have probably gone as a new user and bought yourself a brand new notebook or a computer from a PC company down the road. You go home, you turn it on and you get that welcome to Windows and you go through the install and you click next, and that's what it does. So that's what that sysprep does. It generalizes the machine and kind of clears all the different flags and everything so that it's ready for deployment. So now we've sysprepped our machine and it's shut down. So we can say that's fantastic. So what we need to do is we now need to convert that machine to a VHD. So we right mouse click on your Hyper-V and say edit disk. We go next. And of course, we need to then obviously browse to where my virtual machine is. And I would come in here And we can say we call that dev3, I think. Click on there, click on your virtual disk, and we'll say next. Now we say convert, and we click next. Now we select VHD. I mean, you can go and download tools that will do it for free. But why should I download a tool for free if I've got the right tool right here within my own environment? So now you say, let's convert that to a VHD disk, and I would click next. Obviously, you want to make sure it's fixed sized. You can always change the size once you deploy it into Azure. So we go next, and of course you choose a location. In my case, I can go back into my drive. I like to keep everything in the same place, but you can save it at your desktop. You can save it wherever you feel like saving it. I go into my virtual disks, and I'll call this, say, Win11-03-VHD. And I say save and next and finish. Now, what it's going to do, it's going to convert that disk for me automatically so that I can now deploy it to Azure. And again, when we deploy it to Azure, we need to deploy it as into our storage container or our blob container. But obviously, when we deploy it, we want to deploy it as a page file, because regardless of what virtual machine you deploy to Azure, you need to deploy it as a page file, because that's what Azure uses to read virtual machines with. So again, it doesn't take long to convert this image. And then we'll go up into Azure and we'll upload it. I already have a machine, an image that I've sysprepped and uploaded, but I want to walk you through the steps. Now, uploading it to Azure, depending on your internet connection, can take anywhere from 2 hours to 6 hours, depending, or even 8 hours. It just depends on how big your image is. Depends solely on your internet connection. So if you have not such a good internet connection, it's going to take 5 hours. If you have a really good internet connection, it could take 1 hour or even 30 minutes. It just depends on you. So now it's sysprepped. We can go ahead and close down Hyper-V because we don't need Hyper-V anymore. So the next thing I want to do in order to create my virtual machine is I want to actually go and create a resource group. So I'm going to go and I'm going to create a resource group just so that you can see how this is done. And let's create a new one. I'll just call this one Win11-03-VHD. And I'll just say review and create and create. So now it's created that resource group for us. I'm going to close that down. The next thing we need to do is we need to create a storage account. So I'm going to go ahead and create a storage account. So I'm going to call this storage account the same name. So we're going to go ahead and put it into that resource group we had. So let's call this Win11-VHD. Sorry, we can't have spaces. So Win11-VHD 03. And I'm going to take off zone redundant because I don't want this available over different regions. I'm going to make this local redundant storage. You can choose what storage you want. I'm going to go next. I'm going to leave everything as default there. I obviously want hot storage because I want to access that. I'm going to go next. I'm going to leave everything as the default for networking. I'm going to click next. I'm going to turn off data protection. The reason I'm turning that off is because I want to delete that storage group at the end of the day. I don't want to delete it. If you have, go ahead and you've created, if you've gone ahead and you've created your storage group and you haven't turned that off, don't worry, after 7 days, it'll delete all your stuff. But I don't want to wait 7 days because I want to delete my bits. I'll go next. You can tag it. Not worried about tagging at the moment. You can put a name and a location. And then, of course, it's going to go away. It's going to do some validation. And we're going to click create. And this is going to go ahead and create that storage group for us. Once we've created that storage group, we will go ahead and upload our image. And obviously, we're not going to sit here for 5 hours because I've already uploaded an image, but I haven't deployed it. So so you can see the steps on how to create a customized image correctly from the ground up and where to find those files. And then, of course, once we create the custom image, we'll go ahead and fire up our Windows 11 image and log into Windows 11, and you'll see it there. And again, guys, you can apply the same analogy or the same scenario that I'm giving you to any Windows image or any Linux image. Then I'm going to go ahead and just go to the resource group. And this is really cool. We're going to click on Storage Explorer. This is going to fire up Storage Explorer. I'm going to go to my blob containers, and I'm going to create a new blob container, and I'll call, let's say, Win1103. See if I can spell today. 03 VHD. You can call it whatever you want. That's not 3, that's 2. Sorry, it's early in the morning here in New Zealand.
Yeah,
So,
second cup of coffee. It's okay.
Second cup of coffee. Yeah, when I mean early, like it's 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock. So we go create. So now what you do is we create that container, and we just give it a sec. Obviously, we can come over here and we can dismiss all these messages, and we can see we've created our container. And sometimes you need to give it a sec for it to create. Normally what I do is you can go to events, you come back into storage container, and you can see there's our blob. Now we want to upload that image we've just converted. So we'll go ahead and we'll click upload, and then I'll click browse. And then of course I could browse to my Windows Hyper-V disks, and there's my VHD image at the top here, VHD 3, and I could click open. Then I would come to the advanced tab. Don't just click upload, because you'll waste all this time uploading your machine and it won't work. Come down and select page blob. Make sure you've got page blob selected. That's really important that you have that. And then we click upload. And now this is going to go away and upload this image. And obviously we're not going to wait for it because we're going to be here for hours. So I have an image that I've already uploaded, but I haven't deployed it. So now we're going to go and deploy it so you can see how it's done. So I'm just going to close that down, and I'll go ahead again to my storage account. And as you can see in my storage account, if I go into my storage here and I come into here, you can see I now have uploaded last night a VHD image, and you can see it's uploaded because it's got .vhd. So you can say, that's great, I've created my VHD image. What do we do now? Pretty easy. We just go images. So you type in IMG at the top and select images. So now what we want to do is I'm going to create another image. So I'll click create. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, where do we want to throw that image? And say, well, okay, I'll throw it in lab 2. That's that resource group. I'm going to give it a name. I'll just call this 111-02. And remember when we built our virtual machine, we had Hyper-V generation 1 and generation 2. So I did generation 1, and we're using a Windows image. If I was using Linux, I would select Linux. Now we need to browse to our blob or browse to our storage container. So I'm going to click browse. And of course, I'm going to go to my VHD2, which is over here. And there's my lab. I'm double clicking, and there's my VHD file. And I'm going to click OK. Now we've uploaded our VHD file. We're going to choose what type of drive do we want. I'm saying, well, I'll use a standard SSD drive. Then I'm going to go ahead and go next. You could tag it and review and create. This is going to do some validation for us. I'm going to click create. Now, is this creating the virtual machine for us? Absolutely not. It's just prepping a whole lot of stuff for us so that we can actually create our virtual machine. So I'll just close this down because this is deploying some stuff. So we just kind of wait for it to deploy. And once it's deployed, you'll see it in here. Then we can go and create our virtual machine. So we just need to sit and wait a bit while that's deploying. If you want to know the progress of your deployment, you can always scoot up to the top here and you can see, okay, we've got a deployment in progress here, and we can see we still got that VHD3 uploading. So I'm just going to close that down, And we'll just give this a second for the deployment to complete. Now that it's telling us that the deployment has completed successfully, you can either close it down here and we can go to resources. So now we're in our resources. We can see what type of drive we have. We can see our VHD image. Now we create the virtual machine. So we click create and we go ahead and we're going to keep it in the same resource group. Let's give this a name. We'll call it Win 11 so call 1102. Again, we've got our availability zones. We don't want to do spot instancing. There's our image that it's created. Obviously, we're going to create this virtual machine with 8 gigs of memory as opposed to 6. So I'm going to give it a name. I'll just call it, I don't know, let's say AZ, all lowercase, sorry guys. I'll just say AZ admin. I'm going to just give it a password. And I'll just give it a password again. And then obviously I'm going to leave the defaults for now because we want to RDP to that machine. I'm going to go next. Again, you can choose what type of disk you want. I'll just keep it at that because it's just a lab. I'll go next for networking, basic walkthrough steps, like you would create a virtual machine. I would go next. Obviously turn off boot diagnostics because I don't need boot diagnostics. And of course you can choose whether you want to update it or you want Windows to update it. That's absolutely fine with you. I'd go next. You could, if you had any customized scripts that you want to run, you could paste those in there. At the end of the day, I'm just going to accept the defaults for now because we're learning how to create and upload our customized image. I'm going to go next. Obviously, you could tag it if you wanted to. I'm going to click review and create. And this is going to go away. It's going to do some validation for us. And it's going to go ahead and create. Now we are creating our virtual machine. And like I say, that'll sit and spin for a while it creates. And then you would just download the RDP client and you would connect to that virtual machine. And as you can see, it's deploying. And once it's deployed, what you can do is you can actually go to that storage group and you can actually delete it so that you don't have a 20 gig image sitting there taking up space that you don't need. But again, that's up to you, what you want to do at the end of the day. So again, we'll just let this bad boy go away and do its thing. And like I say, it can take a couple of minutes to go away because it's creating a virtual machine. And it's creating a virtual machine from that VHD drive that we uploaded. And like I said earlier on, you can do Linux images, any Linux image, and any Windows image. Just remember with Windows 10, you'd need to run some PowerShell commands to sysprep the machine. Those PowerShell commands that you run, make sure that remote desktop is turned on. There's a few things that you can do to prepare your machine. And then of course you can just upload your machine straight into Azure. I haven't tried sysprepping a Windows 10 machine and uploading it. My gut instinct is telling me that it will work because it works with Windows 11. It should work with Windows 10 because it's based on the same architecture. So this will go away and install your virtual machine. And of course, if we scoot over to virtual machines, you can see I have a virtual machine here. Once that virtual machine is created, we can then go ahead and log on to that virtual machine using remote desktop. So it'll be exactly the same thing. You just click on your virtual machine over here. You would come down, you would say connect, you would download that RDP client, or you would connect using RDP, and then obviously you come down and download it. The reason I'm getting that is because it's deallocated, which means I need to click into my virtual machine and I need to go and start that bad boy up. So once that virtual machine is started up, I can go ahead and remote into it. Again, we can have a look here and we can see what's happening with our other virtual machine. And we can see the story at the end of the day. If you wanted to know the status, you could also click this hyperlink And this takes me up to my storage group. Now you can see I'm uploading storage. You can see I've uploaded quite a bit of storage. So if I might say I want to cancel that storage because we don't need to spend 5 hours waiting for this thing to upload. So I can go ahead and I can cancel that upload, and that'll cancel that upload. As you can see, I've uploaded a whole lot of storage as I was playing and exploring when I was prepping Windows 11. And of course, you could go ahead and clean all of this up. And if I did a refresh on here, you can go ahead and clean bits and pieces up. So we can go back to our virtual machine, and you can see here, this is in the process of creating. It's now over there, so we need to wait for it to be in a running state. Again, it's always good to come down here and see the deployment of what's going on. And as you can see, because I canceled that upload, we get those notifications. So it's important that you pay attention sometimes to these notification notes, because they do tend to tell you bits and pieces. So again, it tells us that we just wait for stuff to deploy. Again, our virtual machine has started successfully. So that's great. So that's one is running. Again, sometimes if things are taking a bit of time, sometimes just doing a refresh, you can see what's happening. And of course, it's still creating that virtual machine. So again, I've got this one up and running, and I've got my remote desktop client. So I'm just going to click on that. I'll just drag that over, and I'll say connect. And then I'll just drag this other window over here because I've got two screens. I'll log on.
See it.
And just give me a sec. I'll pull it over. Can you see it?
Yep.
And I'll click next. Hang on, it's opening up on.
It keeps going to the other window.
Keeps on going. It keeps on going to the other window. Just give me a sec. And there we go. And as you can see, I'm now logging in to my Windows 11 virtual machine. And there we go. And again, you see the toolbars on the left there, because if I come down to toolbar settings and I scroll up to the top here, remember I said you had this drop-down menu. You only have two options, left and center. And again, you've got your themes, very similar to Windows 10. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with it. Again, coming down over here as well, once you select your themes, again, you can choose your desktop icons. You can go ahead and add icons to.
Looks just like Windows 10. Looks easy, not complicated.
It's not complicated at all. It just looks like Windows 10. And there we go. And open up control panel. Now you have a virtual machine running successfully in Azure. So it's not hard to do. And again, you can use those same principles, guys, whether it's a Windows machine or a Linux machine. If you don't have Windows 10 and you're using something else, go and download OracleBox. It's free. Does the same thing. So it all depends on you. Some of you guys may not like Hyper-V. Some of you may prefer OracleBox. But hey, if you've got Windows 10 Pro, Hyper-V's there by default. Go and turn it on and use it. But again, you may not like it. So download OracleBox. Those are the two ways to convert a VHD. You can download a program from StarWinds. It's a free program that allows you to convert VMware and Microsoft disks to VHD. So StarWinds is really cool. It's a cool utility, especially if you're wanting to convert different formats between VMware to a VHD. You can do that. Or if you've got
I was gonna say EXSI.
ESXi.
VMware.
ESXi. So if you've got something that's running in VMware that uses the VDMK format, you can download StarWinds. It's a free tool, and you can convert it to Hyper-V to a .vhd drive, and then you can upload your VMware machine straight into straight into Azure, and you're off to the races. And I can go ahead and I can go and close this bad boy down, and I'll just shut him down because I don't need him. And that's going to go and tell me that it's done. So again, like I say, sometimes creating the virtual machine can take a little bit of time. Again, I've got a lot of resources running on my tenant, so it's just thinking about it. But again, that's the principle. That's exactly the same method you would use to deploy any virtual machine. Or you may decide, no, I want to go to the marketplace. Then you could just type marketplace. You can go into the marketplace if you don't want to create your own virtual machine. And of course, you can scroll down and you could go to compute, and you can go ahead and get an image prepped already for you for free, or you can go and pay for it. For example, here's an Ubuntu server. They want you to pay this per hour. You can create it yourself and save yourself money. So
it was easy. It was easy. It was easy to do it. We just did it in like 2 seconds. We did it. Boom, boom, boom. And it worked.
Boom. Absolutely. So if there's stuff you can do yourself, do it yourself. You know, if there's stuff that you want to create a specialized Linux image, download your favorite distro into Hyper-V, put all your apps on it, get it running, and throw it up into Azure, and it'll work perfect. So there's a lot of cool things you can do. But like I say, some people don't know about it, and they'll go down here and they say, well, I'll go and buy this. It doesn't cost a lot of money. But at the end of the day, like I say, if you look here, Ubuntu, these guys are charging some money to use their Ubuntu server. You go and create your own one. I mean, if you want CentOS, why pay for an image when you can create it yourself? So it's just giving you some groundwork on how to deploy an image to Azure correctly. The reason you deploy an image, like I said earlier on, is you want to test to see if all your applications run in Azure before you make that final decision to migrate everything over. So there's a lot of things that come into play. So having an understanding of how to test that is great. And as you can see, our virtual machine deployment has succeeded. And we can come into our virtual machine. We can go to our resource, and you can see we are ready to go. Again, I could just click my RDP client. I can go down and say, let's download that RDP file. I can say, let's open that RDP file. It's opening up over here. I can say connect. And of course, I'm getting a prompt. So I could go along and type in AZ admin, type in that password, and I could go ahead and connect, and it's opening up on the other machine.
The other window.
Yeah, on the other window. So you can go ahead and do a whole lot of things. But let's say you've gone into your virtual machine, and I want to show you another little tip. And this happened to me a few times. You go to your Windows machine and you say, well, hey, I can't connect. I've uploaded it. Sometimes Azure might get a B in its bonnet. You can come down here and say reset a password. And of course, you don't want to reset the configuration. So you can just type in AZ admin. You can go ahead and type in a password. You can go ahead and type that password in again. Sorry.
Yeah, so some people delete the whole thing. You can actually just reset it. You want to delete the whole thing.
Yeah, you don't, and then you just say update. Don't delete your whole virtual machine. You spend time creating it. Why delete it? You just can't get on because you forgot the password or whatever the case may be. But again, your virtual machine needs to be running. So we've just reset the password on this virtual machine, and then we can go ahead and connect to that virtual machine. So while that password is updating, of course, once you're in your virtual machine settings, there's a lot of things you can do. We can go ahead and change the disk size. We can go ahead and look at the IP configuration. So there's a lot of things that you want to do. If you wanted to change the size of that virtual machine, you could click on there and go ahead and change the size of your virtual machine. You could scroll down and say, well, I don't want to change the size. I want to change my disk size. You could come down here. You could select on the disk, and you can say, okay, well, that disk was 17 gig. We can go through, and of course, my machine's a bit slow because it's doing other bits. So come on, and we can come down here, highlight that, and you might say, well, okay, I want to change it to 30, and you could click 30. So I'm just going to leave it at 17, or I'm just going to discard that. So, or you might say, I want to change the whole virtual machine, and you could click on here and change it to a P6. if you wanted to. So there's a lot of cool things there. So again, it's resetting that password. It shouldn't take too long to reset. Once that password has reset, you can go ahead and connect to that virtual machine. So the way we've deployed stuff from the ground up is how we've deployed it. Now, again, if I come to my Windows 11 machine, I want to show you something. Even though it says it's, if I come into my virtual machine here, sorry, let's close this down. I want to show you over here. Even though it says it's stopped, we're still going to pay for it. So it says it's stopped, and you can go ahead and kind of do a refresh, and it kind of still says it's stopped. So sometimes it's always good to physically go and stop that virtual machine itself so that it says it's deallocated. And the reason I keep on coming back to this, guys, make sure it says deallocating, and then it'll say stopped, deallocated. Then you're not paying for that virtual machine. Because sometimes you may click stop and it actually hasn't stopped. It's still running in the background there. And then you're going to get a nice bill saying, well, hello, can you please pay for this virtual machine? So now it's telling us that our password's reset. We can quickly scoot over and download that RDP client. Well, I've got it there already, but let's just download it anyway. And let's open up that file. It's opening up on another window. Let's just say connect. Come down here, and then I could say AZ admin, type in that password, p#RD2323, and it's thinking about it. And it's opened up. There it is. It's opened up there, and it's thinking about it. And once it's opened up, I'll drag it over. It's opened up a full screen here. So let me drag this over and there's that VHD2 that we just created and we are deploying. And it does the same thing. And it's going to walk us through installing Windows fresh from the ground up. You know, like next, region, country, that type of thing. That's what the sysprep does. It's allowing us to deploy a fresh image when we are setting it up. And then, of course, it's just preparing it for Azure. So again, this can take a couple of minutes while it screams away and does its thing, but it's pretty much the same thing. So again, guys, if you create virtual machines and you're like me, sometimes I create a virtual machine and I mistype the password, or I forget the password and I go, oh crap, I've got to go and start all over again. I've got to delete my virtual machine and rebuild it again. I mean, that's fine in the beginning, but then after a while it becomes a pain. So again, just go and reset the password, log in, and you'll be off to the races. And like I say, the reason this is thinking about it, because remember, we sysprepped our virtual machine, so it's creating a brand new image for us. But however, if we had any applications installed, we won't have to install that applications. What it's doing, it's creating a new user account for us. So we can go ahead and do that. It's not like copy and paste something in and just log straight in. It doesn't work that way. But again, like I say, this is just laying some ground rules for you. So once you've got your virtual machine running in Azure, you can go ahead and experiment and play, test that your applications work, test that RDP works, test your map drives work. So there's a few things you can do. So yeah, I'm quite happy with this. It works. I can then now push this out. I reckon once Azure goes live to the public, you will be able to select a Windows 11 image. I would think so.
I was going to ask you a question
from Azure.
I was going to ask you a question, actually. I would, we're not going to do it today, but I want to see if we could add this to a domain.
Yes, you can.
Windows 11, just play around with it.
Yes, I've added Windows 11 to a domain, and you can. Absolutely.
And put group policy on it and see what we get out of it.
Correct. Exactly, Kevin. Exactly what you're saying is the best way to learn is to get into the grind, get your hands dirty, and get familiar with working with the product. And that's the only way to test. I mean, you can install it and say, well, that's great. But in the real world, like you said, the machine's on a domain. It has policies and processes applied to it. So that's the best thing to do is test and see if everything's going to work that way. And like I said, that's how I play and test as well. So bear in mind, this is taking a bit of a while because it's a developer version and it's the first time you're doing it. Windows 10, when I've deployed it, it's not this quick. It's lightning fast. It's like next, done, and the machine fires up. But like I say, I hope Microsoft make Windows 11 available in Azure, so we can actually choose whether we want to run Windows 10 or Windows 11. And you probably say, well, where did I get Windows 10 from if I'm creating your virtual machine? As you all know, when you start creating a virtual machine, if we go to virtual machines and we say create a virtual machine, I'm hoping that once we start creating virtual machines, that we'll have an opportunity by going to all images and selecting either a Windows image from here, or of course going back to the virtual machines and saying new virtual machine. We should be able to also select our image from here as well, hoping that we can select this drop-down menu and hope that they have Windows 11 in here underneath Windows 10 Pro. But as you can see here, there are some virtual machines here. And as you can see, these are the ones that we've created and played with. So again, it's just about getting your hands dirty and getting comfortable and familiar and working with your Windows environment. So that about wraps it up really, guys. There's nothing else that we can chat about. I'll just close that window down while that virtual machine runs. So that's how I deployed Windows 11 from the ground up.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah, I was going to ask you that. So what did we do today? To recap, I guess.
So a recap, what we did today was we created a custom image in Hyper-V. We then sysprepped that image for Azure. We then converted that VHDX disk to VHD. We then uploaded it to Microsoft Azure. We created a resource group. We created a storage account, and we uploaded, like I say, that VHD file to that storage account. So we went into blob. We created a container, and we prepped that container to accept images by selecting page from the container, not blob. Then obviously we uploaded that image, and then once we had uploaded that VHD file, we then created an image template. Once that image template was created, we then created our virtual machine. And then, of course, once we create our virtual machine, it deploys it into Azure. Then we logged into our virtual machine to make sure that everything is working. And again, guys, once you've done your bits and pieces in your Windows, what you want to do is you want to click on your virtual machine. You want to go ahead and say stop. Say, yes, I want to stop that virtual machine, because you don't want to run it and keep on paying for it. Once that virtual machine has stopped, that's great. What we want to do now is, remember, I went into my storage container. We've got these two storage containers. And if I go back quickly, guys, just 1 second, and we come into our Storage Explorer, I still have this file sitting here to deploy, and it's creating space for me. So what I'm wanting to do is delete that, so that we don't need that anymore, because we've created our virtual machine. So I can go ahead and I can select that container. I'm a lazy guy. I don't like to type in stuff that I don't have to. Just click delete. Now this is going to delete everything, all the files, the tables, the queues, and everything in that blob. And we say, that's fine. We can delete that. We don't need that in there. And I'll just go ahead and delete that. And it's not deleting your virtual machine, because your virtual machine has already been created. We're just deleting that container so that we don't have stuff floating around. And again, I can come back into here, select that one as well, because I don't need that container either, or that storage group, should I say, not container, my fault. Copy that. I come down here and I will go ahead, paste it in there, and delete those storage groups. So once those storage groups have been deleted, I can then go in. If I didn't want this virtual machine that we've created, even though we've deallocated it, I can select that virtual machine and say, okay, well, I've had enough of playing with it. I don't need it anymore. I can copy that, go ahead and I can delete that virtual machine. Sometimes with resource groups as well, we can go into our resource groups and delete our resource groups because we're cleaning up stuff at the end there. So I don't need that resource group, so I can select that resource group, guys. A lot of you know how to do this already. Obviously, you can script this out and go into here, and I can paste that bad boy in there, delete that resource group, and then I can do the same with this other resource group as well, lab 02. I can go in and delete everything in resource group. Remember, when you delete that resource group, it's deleting everything in there. If I go into VHD, you can see in that VHD, I've got all my stuff here, and you can see that's my Win11 Dev 1. If I come back to my virtual machines, I can say that's the one I want. So you don't want to delete the wrong resource group. So it's very important that you just pay attention to what resource group you're deleting. So again, like I say, if I come into my lab 02, I have a look, I can say, right, I can delete that because there's nothing in there. And have a look here, you can see we don't have a virtual machine, where if I come into my Win11 Dev, you can see now there's my virtual machine. Can you see that? So it's really important that you be careful, because just now you delete the wrong resource group and you've got to then start from scratch. And I'm deleting that because I don't need those resources there anymore. And I'm just going to let that go away and delete. And what we've done is we've cleaned up our environment so that it's ready for us to use again the next time we want to create resources. And if you're working from home and you have a lab and you're practicing, remember Azure is pay as you go. And I'll go on about this because I don't want you guys to be charged for things that are not being used. So again, that wraps this lab up. I hope you guys have learned how to do this. Go ahead and create a custom image, deploy it to Azure, try Linux, try Windows. Just remember to turn on remote desktop and sysprep your image, and you should be good to go. Again, if you forget your password, go into your virtual machine and set up your password. And that kind of wraps that up. So now you guys have the skills to deploy any custom image you feel like deploying to Azure.
Thank you, Ryan. That was awesome. Very good, man. Really good. Windows 11 looks exactly like Windows 10. That's the other thing too. I looked at it, I'm like, what? This isn't that bad.
No.
So,
and like I say, like you say, once you get used to using it, it's absolutely fine. So again, like I say, it's just a case of playing. And like you say, put on a domain, create a custom image, group policy, do all these things that you would do, and you'll be cooking with gas.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do more stuff on Azure since we've been covering it for a while now.
Yes.
So we'll probably go over some Active Directory stuff, some group policy, and for the audience, for people so they can learn that stuff.
Yeah. So next week we'll spend some time in Active Directory creating different accounts, creating groups, assigning people to those groups. So yes, and of course. Yeah,
it's for Helpdesk folks, because a lot of people that do IT support, they don't know what a user account is, and there's so many ways to do it. Like we're gonna do it on Azure, but there's like so many. You could do it on VMware, VirtualBox. You create your own server, 2016, put it on VM, and I tell people to do that, and do it in a way that you understand it. Like you're able to talk to your mom and dad and explain it in a non-technical way. If you're able to do that, and you're able to do that in a job interview, then you'll probably get the job. You have to know how to explain what you're doing. Obviously, it's not all copy and paste, right? You have to know what you're talking about. You have to know how to do it. So I tell people, like, if you're going to do a lab, understand what you're doing, understand why you're doing it, and understand like how to explain it in a non-technical way. That way the person understands what you're talking about.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Always talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's all good.
Yeah, so that's what it is. And then guys, like later in the future, we'll probably go over AWS. Well, who knows? If I have me and Ryan, we just talk all the time. We'll go over certain things. With that being said, I don't know if you guys have any questions. I'm gonna wait a couple of minutes before we wrap it up, see if anyone has any questions. Thank you again, Ryan, for showing us Windows 11. I greatly appreciate it. it's always a pleasure to work together with you. I definitely like working with you, and that's the reason
Likewise.
why. And the audience loves you too. Like people
Oh,
like you.
I love them too.
People love you because you're so good at teaching. That there's a remember I explained this to you. Remember I explained to you last week that there's a right way of teaching. There's a wrong way of teaching. Sometimes it's not the student's fault. It's the teacher's fault. So you might have a bad teacher and they're explaining something. They don't want to break it down, right? You have to know how to break it down for someone that does not know anything about IT. So that's the only way to teach someone is if you break it down in baby steps, right? And then you could explain it. They know what you're talking about. You're not talking like technical mumbo jumbo, and it just makes sense to everyone. So
I mean, absolutely. And like I say, we'll go through a lot of stuff, and then hopefully, like I say, you guys will learn some knowledge and share it with the next person. It'll help you as well in your career. And like you say, try to keep things simple and not too complicated. And that's the key. Some people are so happy to share knowledge, and some people are not. And like I say, I know people are hungry for knowledge. Again, IT training is expensive. The fact that your channel offers free training to everyone is absolutely amazing. You're doing an amazing job.
You too, Ryan. You too, Ryan. Don't say you're not doing anything.
So many people. But again, those people that tune in are gonna do so well because, again, if you invest in your time in training and learning, you'll grow and expand really quick. So those that take the time to watch the videos and tune in, again, I'm grateful and humbled because I know it's hard. I know you guys work hard, have a lot of stuff going on during the day. You've got your work life, you've got family life. So taking that few minutes or that half hour or 1 hour to spend with us, I appreciate it greatly. And I know all of you guys have so much capabilities and so much potential. Again, people say the sky's the limit. My answer is that's not. You only limit yourself. You can go higher than
yeah,
that.
exactly.
It's just you at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's what you do.
It's a privilege to be part of this. So again, thank you and thank everyone as well. I'm really happy that guys are stoked. So that's
they said thank you, Ryan, and chat. Everyone said thank you, Ryan. With that being said, I guess we'll wrap it up. I have to talk to Ryan about something else. We'll be here next week again. We'll do some other stuff on Azure and we'll go over some Active Directory stuff. Just like break it down a little bit in a non-technical way, because I know some people had their own way of learning. So everyone has their own way of learning. You may be hands-on, you may not be hands-on, you might be a person that reads a book, right? So everyone has their own way of learning. So we have to break it down one step at a time because everyone has their own way of learning. Not everyone learns the same. That's just the way it is in IT. Some people could, like, you'll see something, you're like, okay, I get it right away. But then there are some people that it takes a lot more time. So you got to have that charisma for teaching, but also you got to have that there's a right way of teaching, right? You got to have that. You have to teach someone and you have to have patience. It's all about patience because not everyone learns the same. So you got to have patience with people. And that's something very important when you're training someone, because if you don't have patience, then it just falls out the window, right? You have to know how to train people the right way, not the wrong way, if that makes sense. So
absolutely.
So someone asked a question: how do you link an Azure server to your own company building?
You would have to use AD Connect.
I think we would have made a video on that.
Yeah, we made a video on that. So if you've got your server on-prem or in your company building or in your office or at home, and you want to hook it up to Azure, you'd have to use AD Connect. And it's a 15-minute job and you're cooking with gas. So you'd obviously need an Azure tenant. And then you'll need global permissions, global Azure admin permissions to run AD Connect. And you just download AD Connect, install it on the server you want to connect to. You don't install it on Azure. You install it on your physical server at your office, and then it'll start talking to Azure because it's going to prompt you for your Azure credentials. Once you've got your Azure credentials, there you go. And of course, if you've got file shares, you could set up file shares in Azure and use file sync. And you could sync your map drives as well to your Azure storage. So there's a lot of cool things you can do. So yeah, I would say connecting up, just download AD Connect, throw it on and make sure you got the Azure permissions and next, and you're done. Follow the wizard.
That's what it is. Yep.
As they say, follow the yellow brick road, Dorothy. So
Man.
it's pretty easy to just download AD Connect, throw it in, and make sure you got the correct Azure permissions, and you'll sync your on-prem server straight up to Azure. Even if it's a VM server running in VMware or Hyper-V on your on-prem, as long as you've got an internet connection and you've got AD Connect running, you'll be good to go.
Anyway, so that about let's see if someone says useful. Someone said watching the videos helps me. Books are definitely useful for looking back and refreshing on something real quick, but it's hard for me to read in depth about something that I don't know about.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, books have their place, but having practical knowledge and having that knowledge that's broken down in easy steps, like Kevin said, is really important. So yeah, I don't knock any books. Having good reference material is always a key plus. Anything that will help you in your IT career adds value at the end of the day. And like I said, different people learn differently. I mean, I read a lot as well. I also do a lot of playing. And there's a lot of good resources out there. So definitely, yes. I agree with
I mean, with Ryan, like if you guys don't know, Ryan is a technical trainer. So he trained students before and he trained people before. So that's the reason, like he has a way of teaching, because it's training, And I'm gravitating towards him a little bit of training, because like I have my own way of doing it. He has his own way of doing it, right? But like what I like to do is with me, like I always do this in IT. I like to grab the knowledge or the positive from someone and use it on my own way of doing it.
Absolutely.
So I do that with everyone, like no matter who it is, I grab their energy, I grab their knowledge, and I absorb it, right? So then I could create better videos, and then I could actually teach better, and be better in my job and everything that I do. I always do that.
Absolutely. And I'm the same too. If I come across someone that's really good and knows stuff, I will suck knowledge from him or her and add it to my little pool. And you learn to do things your own way, and you learn to do things better. So yes, it's all about sharing, and it's all about working and playing and getting your hands dirty and just getting hold of the correct knowledge, so that you don't get frustrated in working in IT, because a lot of people get frustrated because they have the wrong resources, or they have the wrong material in terms of teachers, mentors, not explaining things in depth to them, or breaking it down in simple terms. Because once someone knows how to do it, it's like, oh, well, that's not so hard. But yet if you hear someone talk about it, you go, wow, that's going to be really hard. We've got to sync up our AD local on-prem to Azure tenant, and then we've got to run AD Connect and ensure the policies replicate across. People go, I don't know if I can do that. Mm-hmm. Install AD Connect and go next, done. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's that easy. I'm like, yeah, that's everything for you.
Yep.
And people don't know, and they get a bit afraid because technical terms get complicated. And you think, oh, maybe I'm not that smart. Rubbish. You guys are all smart. It's just, if someone shows you how to do it, it's like learning to drive. If you've never been in a car, it can be a bit daunting at first, but once you start driving, you'll get good at it. I'm not saying you won't have an accident, but at least you will learn with experience over time, and you become a good driver. And it's the same with IT, and it's the same with your knowledge at the end of the day. So anything I can do to help you on your journey, for me, it's a privilege and an honor, because down the line, you're going to help somebody else, and they'll help somebody else. So it's like, pay it forward, dude.
Yeah, just if you become a manager or something, anyone that's watching, just remember, don't forget about me. Buy me a slice of pizza. I'm just kidding. Anyway, with that being said, I'm gonna let you guys go.
Cool.
I don't know if Ryan wants to have any final words he wants to say.
No, I just want to say thank you again, guys, for taking the time to tune in. Again, I appreciate all of you watching the video. I thank you for all of the support that you've given me in terms of my LinkedIn and in terms of my YouTube channel. You guys are awesome and you rock. So in my book, keep on being awesome, you gurus. You guys are just, you guys are going to do amazing things. So thank you again, and have a great week and be safe.
All right, guys, you guys have a great day. You guys have a great Saturday. Have a good weekend. Stay safe. Thank you for tuning in with us. And that's it. And just we'll be here next week. We'll talk again more about IT. We love talking about IT. Thank you guys for tuning in. You guys are awesome. And you guys have a good weekend. Take care. my
Take
industry
care.
right now.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.
Bye.